All right, welcome everybody inside the coaching office. I'm Dan Murphy, along with my co-host Brian Barnes. And Brian, we got a lot to talk about, man. Another busy week, as it always is this time of year. And I'm gonna go ahead and start right with the Detroit Lions, and quite the controversy last week, Sunday Night Football, Lions and Chiefs. And well, let's just get right into it, Brian. I want to get your opinion right off the bat. What happened on that Jared Goff non-touchdown?
Yeah, you're right. Controversial for sure because you when you have a penalty happen, like you want it to happen immediately, like as a coach and as a
Yeah,
fan, you're watching that, like you want to know that the officials got it right from the get-go. Only because that's kind of the way it is. Like when they see it in real time, they throw the flag, right? And so
yeah.
it's understandable the Lions fans' frustration with that call and that the referees took a second to think about it. And it reminded me a little bit of the pass interference of the playoff game against the Cowboys. What was that, 10 years ago, right? When the Lions had the lead in Dallas, that playoff game in the fourth quarter, and the refs get together after the fact when there was no flag and decide to throw the flag. And it just seemed at the moment I was feeling it immediately. I'm sure just like everybody else, like, and it was kind of like Dan Skipper checking in a couple of years ago. It
Yeah.
felt like that too in Dallas, and it was just kind of like, well, what's going on here, officials? And what's funny is one of the criticisms of the NBA is the argument, in my opinion, right, that certain players get certain calls and the league wants things done a certain way for certain players, and it just felt like that the other night. And I try not to get into all that stuff, but man, it felt like it
Sometimes,
it felt like it
sometimes it's hard to deny it.
it just felt like it, and it doesn't. It's not necessarily all the time against the Lions thing. It definitely feels like a okay Patrick Mahomes thing, right? And like there were times it was the same thing with Tom Brady. Like there are certain calls you're like, all right, if that hit is on, the second string quarterback in New Orleans right now, as that happens to Spencer Rattler, it's the same kind of call, right? That Patrick Mahomes would get, for example. But yeah, it just seemed the entire game, and obviously the penalty on Jared Goff, it just seemed questionable. Let's just put it that way.
Well, you
So,
you go into the game, everybody's kind of already thinking about it. Like, are they going to let the Chiefs go to 2-4?
mhm.
Like, their moneymaker, their primetime team, their primetime player, Mahomes. I don't want to bring up Taylor Swift, but that's part.
Of
Like
course.
she's in the stands, all of it. Like the Chiefs are their money team. And everybody's like, well, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the
Hmm.
Lions. They're probably not going to get any calls. If it's a 50-50 call, it's not going to go their way. But for the Chiefs to have zero penalties
Hmm.
throughout the entire game, and that probably bothers me more than anything else, when they had 13 penalties the week before.
Yeah.
So that either that's one of the greatest coaching jobs of all time, to somehow get your team to be more disciplined in a 6-day span where you go from 13 penalties to zero, or there was something going on there.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't think
that
I
is
don't think
bizarre.
I don't think Andy Reid put an emphasis on his offensive lineman, like, hey, you're feeling that jersey tug, let go this week, right? Like that's I just yeah, bizarre. But as a coach, like going to coach against certain teams or in high school sports, right? Certain communities, like officials are human too, and I can't imagine they're not influenced by certain situations and certain teams, right? And certain coaches. And I just feel like, and you can't prove it obviously, right? But eh, I just feel that the NFL, right? And I definitely feel that way now. Something about the Chiefs, right? Like you said, the money team,
Yeah,
and
it's
it
not, and it's
just
not good. It's not
no,
good.
it's not. It's
It's
not.
not a
It's
good
not.
look on the league.
It's not. And it's like, of course, you want your superstar players protected, and you want your guys, up there, but you also want it to be on the up and up too, or on the
Yeah.
level, right? You want it to be legit and fair. And when we'll talk about this, do I think the Lions only scored 17 points? Like, is that the reason they lost the game? Probably not. But it's just frustrating.
So let's get into the golf play a
Mhm.
little bit here. So I got it popped up here. You can see. So the question was Goff under center or not? Because if he's under center, then I guess, declaring himself that he's a quarterback. And if he goes in motion, he has to make a pause for at least 1 second. Can you kind of get into this a little bit more, Brian, and what your understanding of what this rule is, in what the situation here, because it looks like from the Lions' perspective, they were thinking as long as his hands aren't under center, that he's fine to go in motion and he doesn't have to stop for a full
I
second.
Yeah, I guess, and that was a pretty cool creative play
Yeah,
by John Morton and their staff. Like that was cool. Like that was cool to watch. And any person that goes in motion, has to pause for a second or get set for a second. And I guess in the backfield, like right, any person that's in the
yeah,
backfield and is eligible to move. So if he was standing in the gun, right, and he all of a sudden takes off, I think it's fine because he's at least set for a second. But as he's moving, they're saying he didn't get set for that second or that half a second and then went. He's deemed ineligible. So it'd be no different than a back shifting from the right side of the quarterback to the left side of the quarterback and not getting reset for that split second when they snap the ball. I'm thinking it's that. And I'm assuming the spirit of the rule is that you don't want to give that type of deceptive advantage
yeah.
to the offense, But it really wasn't like,
So my
right?
my theory with this is, Brian, because the big problem with the whole thing was they called it a touchdown on the field, and then it was a good minute and a half later that they finally threw a flag and said that it was an illegal motion. So the question was it called down from New York? And apparently, an
Well,
official told Dan Campbell that it was, and then in the
right.
postgame talk, the referee said no, New York had nothing to do with it. So somebody's lying, and I doubt it's Dan Campbell.
And I think there was a report later on, right, that there was the call. Like it came out that there was the call, or maybe I read
No,
something wrong on
the
X or
report. Well, I don't know about that, but what it was, the officials have like a little post game like scrum or something, wherever, where
Mhm,
they answer some questions, and it's almost like kind of a little private thing with a few
mhm.
reporters, but they answer questions and then it goes out to the public. And they were asked if New York was involved at all, and they said no. They said no. New York had no involvement. And then later, Dan Campbell was interviewed on Costa and Jansen on
Thank you.
97.1, and he
Thank
said
you.
that yes, when they asked him, he very begrudgingly
Yeah.
said, he's like,
Right. Yeah.
he didn't elaborate on it, but he did say yes, basically
Yeah.
saying that yes, New York, he was told by an official that it was a call from New York. And what I'm thinking, my theory on this is, because anytime, and as you know, as a head coach, Brian, and we know as coaches, like if you have trick plays like this that you're going to use in a game or potentially
Ye
use in a game, you talk to the officials before the game, and you get everything cleared up with them and let them know, like, hey, this is a play we're going to do. We want to make sure we got everything correct here and that you guys know what we're going to do and you guys have an idea of what's going to happen here. And I have a feeling that the officials went over it with the coaches and said, hey, as long as your hands aren't under center, you're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And then that's why it took so long. And New York, obviously, I think New York called everything. Everybody knows New York called down at this point and
Yeah.
said, hey, it's an illegal motion. And the refs are probably like, crap. Like we told them that as long as the hands aren't under center, but we got New York, our bosses telling us that we have to throw a flag here because it's illegal motion. Because it is
So
illegal motion. That is the
is
rule.
did the league then get involved because, hey, this is really going to be egg on our face in this nationally televised game if we screw this up? Could that possibly get more like the league saving face more than it is given the Chiefs, right? Like hey, looking out for them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it possible? And
Yeah, this is
mm,
more to me. This whole play, this doesn't bother me in terms of like, oh, the Chiefs are getting an advantage and all this.
mhm,
I think this is just a total screw up by the league. This could have been
yeah,
any game, I think, and I really do think that the officials told the Lions beforehand that they were good to run this exactly the way they run it, and then
yeah.
New York called down and said that it was an illegal motion, and then they were kind of screwed because they had
I,
told the Lions one thing, and now New York is telling them a different thing after the play is over.
I guess though the question I have though is like, okay, so any controversial touchdown, like, is the league now going to set this precedent that they're going to,
That's the thing too about it too. They're
right?
setting a
Right?
precedent here. They're not
I mean, you're
supposed
not.
to intervene in a play like this, but I don't have a problem with it if they do. Like
Oh, I
I don't
do. I
care.
do.
Set the
Oh, I do.
precedent. Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
I
I
do.
don't
I do.
because
I do.
if it's clear and obvious that a mistake was made, get it
So
right.
I
Whatever
I'm
it takes to
fine.
get the
I
call right,
agree.
I'm cool with.
So we've had that conversation when it comes to like the ABS system in baseball coming and things like that. Get it right. And you and I agree with that. I'm just saying though, now it sets a precedent that any questionable touchdown that the league might or the officials on the field misses, are they going to get a call and a buzz from the NFL saying like, "Hey, no, you got that wrong," like, or this is interpreted this way? Like, right? Like, I just think
I
it could
guess
open up.
in my mind, it has to be something that's clear cut. An illegal motion, a guy offside, something like that where it's clear cut, where you can see it and it's obvious, where
But
it's not a judgment call like a pass interference or something along those
but
lines.
I guess this play have been a judgment call? You know what I mean? It wasn't like he stepped out of
He
bounds
didn't come to a
or
complete
didn't step
stop.
out of down. I guess, like, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like a balk in baseball. I mean,
I guess, but I
if
think
it
it's
was
pretty clear
that,
he
but
didn't
if
come to
it
a
was
complete stop
if it was that obvious, I still go back to this. Okay, if it was that obvious, why didn't the officials on the field call it?
because I don't think they realized that was the rule.
Then
That's
that's
my
bad. Then
theory. I don't
that's
know
a
that for
problem.
sure,
Then
but that's my theory.
that's a problem. Then, like,
I
that's
I
wrong. Yeah,
agree, but it's
yeah.
it's a very rare play where you see a quarterback go in motion. It's not something you see very often, and then throw it to him.
Man, I don't know.
There's still a lot of questions, and that's my problem too. It's like the NFL needs to come out and like definitively say what happened and what the rule is, and
Why
how these
though?
things need to be officiated going
No, they
forward.
don't. No, they don't. I mean,
Why
it would,
not?
yes. Why
I
should
think they
why
owe it to the fans
they why people are talking about it? People are going to show up to the games anyway. The game, like, we're going to move on. Like, the NFL is still going to, like, be on every night of our existence in some way, shape, or form, right? Why does the NFL have to fix anything? Why do they have to?
because
I
now, and I
It's
said I
not going
don't
to
think
hurt
this
their
play
product.
is
It's not going to hurt their product. I don't just listen. I playing devil's
I
advocate.
disagree
I
with that.
agree.
I disagree
I,
with that. And this
you,
and what has the
if
narrative been all
I
week? What has the
because
talk been all
but
week? That
that's
they're
great.
rigging the game.
That's great. But then, like, it's been like that for a while now. It's been like that for a while
And
now.
it's
With
you will catch up
Deflategate,
to
it's
them.
been like that. The NFL's
You will
gotten
catch
away
up to
with
them.
a lot. The
Of
NFL's
course they
gotten away
have. Of course
historically,
they have. But at
and
some
it's
point,
only gotten
it
big.
catches up to them.
I want, but what's it gonna? I don't know. I don't know if this play is gonna be the thing that fans say, no,
No,
heck with this. I'm not
this isn't the
watching. Right?
straw that
The
this isn't the straw
crazy,
that breaks the
the
camel's back. But
crazy,
I do think
the
it adds to it.
well,
It's just another
if
thing you add to the pot.
well, you know what's funny? I'm gonna talk out of both sides of my mouth because I just said that. I guess the one way there where this theoretically could really mess with the NFL is, think of all the bettors who said Jared
That's the
Goff
other
is gonna
aspect
score the
of it.
first touchdown,
Yes.
right? That's where, I guess, to your point, sure, I can see that becoming like, hey, this stuff can't happen because now, like, you're messing with people like who had Jared Goff scoring the first touchdown and then it didn't happen, and that you're messing with people's money, right? And then that's when, if it messes with the wrong person's money, who has a lot of money, then they didn't, then it's different. Yeah, and then it's different. So
Yeah,
that
that is the other aspect of it too, because you start getting all this betting involved now,
mhm.
and now there's a ton of money
that
involved on these single
and
plays.
that's a whole nother conversation we could have that would be interesting, because it's the same thing in college football. Like, when money gets
Yeah,
involved, right? And you're giving money to kids and things happen, and when things don't go the way they should, people have to answer, and then it's not gonna be pretty. It's not gonna be pretty.
yeah.
So yeah.
So the game was bookended by two pretty controversial issues. Obviously, with the golf touchdown, non-touchdown that was called back. Obviously a big factor in the game. And then what is going to be a big factor in next week's game is the Branch situation, the Brian Branch. Clearly, he got blocked in the back, was not called. You can see it here. It's like just
Huh?
clearly Juju Smith hits him in the back. And then, following the game, Branch ends up punching Smith in the face, and he's suspended for 1 week. And just a huge loss for the Lions going into Monday night.
Yeah, for sure. And Brian Branch, has every right to be ticked off at Juju Smith-Schuster, who apparently has a reputation, right, of kind of, running his mouth and hitting after the whistle and things like that. But regardless, like, Brian Branch, like, for as good as he is, there has been times in his career where he's crossed the line a little bit and gotten some
Yeah.
penalties, and now, unfortunately, it's costing him a game, which is going to be a big deal considering they're not going to have seemingly anybody in the secondary,
Yeah,
like,
no, their secondary's out.
so which
Just
we'll
the
talk about.
wrong
But
time to do this,
yeah, just
man.
when you need a guy, yeah, that's Yeah, not the right time. And so at some point, like Brian Branch is still a young player, like very similar to Jamison Williams. Their immaturity has shown a little bit, and this is one of those moments now where it is directly negatively affecting the team. So if Baker Mayfield goes off tomorrow night, uh, yeah, that's gonna be bad.
But I will give Branch. I was pretty critical at when it happened. I'm like, man, you're gonna get suspended. Like he
Hmm.
can't afford to lose yet. Like you got to be smarter than this.
Hmm.
But when you look at the totality of the game, the Chiefs getting zero penalties, the whole golf touchdown situation, and then him getting blatantly blocked in the back when he's already playing hurt,
Yep.
so he's already playing a little, he's already got an issue going in, and then he gets cheap shotted like that right at the end of the game. Man, he's standing up for himself and
He
he's
is.
standing up for his teammates, and I get it a little. I
It's
get it.
a
I get
well,
it.
and
I can understand his side of things. I get it. He's got to be smarter than that because he can't afford to get suspended. But I get it. Standing up for yourself and your teammates in that
and you
situation.
this as an offensive lineman, like there are times like dudes will do just about anything to protect their quarterback. If
Yeah.
there's a late hit on the quarterback, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Or they
doesn't,
deem it to be a
right.
cheap shot
Yeah.
or a late hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter the game situation. Nothing matters. Like we're protecting our quarterback. So
Yeah.
to your point, I agree. Like Brian Branch is a pretty respected guy in that locker room. And he, like you said, he was sticking up for himself and his teammates. And yep, it's just unfortunately like actions have
Yeah.
consequences. And this is one of them.
It sucks that he gets suspended. It sucks that it's on national TV. There's a perception that's going to be made about him now in the Lions. But in that locker room,
No
I think
doubt.
they're like, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
no
yeah.
doubt.
You know what I
It,
mean? Like you had
it's
our back. You stood up for yourself. We get it, man. We get it.
and what's crazy is we haven't even really talked about the game, and we're not really dissecting it tonight, but like okay, so they lost, but like they weren't, I mean, they already had a loss in the season. They're not going undefeated. They're not going 16-1, right? And like looking at the schedule before the season, I mean, we talked about how this was probably not going to be a winnable game. And so yeah, just try to put together a team, a secondary for this week, and get a win and get back on track. Because it's been a long
Yeah.
time since the Lions have lost 2 games in a row, as we
They
know.
have
It's been
not, yeah, they have
documented.
not
It's been
lost
documented.
2 games in a row since 2022.
Hmm.
So really, and that was when I think they started 1-6.
Yeah.
And from that point on, they've been the best team in the NFL record wise since that point, and have not lost back-to-back games. And this might be the toughest one, the toughest spot
Yeah.
to continue that as they play Tampa Bay here Monday Night Football tomorrow night. Biggest game of the week for
Mhm.
sure, and one of the big games of the season so far for the Lions is Tampa Bay is going to be coming in 5-1, and they're red hot. I mean, red hot, and Baker Mayfield's playing at an MVP level right now. But both teams are banged up, and oddly enough, they're the two, rooms that are going to be going against each other. Lions secondary against Tampa Bay's receivers. So I mean, let's just get right into the injuries with the Lions. My goodness, in the situation they're in with the secondary, the entire starting secondary is out. DJ Reed obviously is on IR. Terry and Arnold is not going to be able to play. He's still kind of week to week with his injury. Kirby Joseph is going to be out with a knee. He kind of battled through that the entire game against Kansas City, but he's going to be out. And then Branch with the suspension. So you get an entirely second and third group out there going against an MVP level quarterback in Baker Mayfield.
Yep, and he's been playing really well, and they've been playing really well. They are a little banged up too, which I'm sure you're going to get to in a second. And the Lions lost, was it last year home game against the Buccaneers? So
Yep.
this isn't like a home field advantage automatic gimme. Baker Mayfield's played well. They obviously beat him in the playoff game a couple of years ago, but Tampa Bay came back and beat him last year in the regular season. So it'll be interesting to see scheme wise what the Lions do to make up for being so banged up. Do they do they limit what they do defensively to not have their guys that are playing overthink things, or do they now feel like they have to get creative because they're going to be at a disadvantage, right, for being being out there and being banged up. So that'll be fun to see. Or offensively, do they take more risks? I mean, even more than they do now, to try to get points on the board to help out their defense and try to score 40, right? And
Yeah.
outscore Tampa Bay that way. But Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one to watch. It's been weird in my lifetime. Back to the creamsicle uniforms of the Buccaneers. I've always had a
Yeah.
soft spot for them. Like, although it's frustrated me as a Lions fans because I remember Tampa Bay was always like the god awful franchise, just like the Lions, and then since then the Buccaneers have won 2 Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
But I've always had a soft spot for the Bucks, so it'll be a fun
Yeah,
one.
I posted quite a few, nostalgia videos throughout the
Hmm.
week, which I try to do, leading up to a game, trying to show some old games of the past. And man, there was some classics for Barry Sanders, man,
Mm.
in the
Oh,
90s. He
for
just
sure.
used to dominate the Buccaneers, man.
The
Had some of the
the
best games of his career against Tampa.
the highlight against George, not George Lynch, John
John
Lynch,
Lynch.
right? When he's,
Yeah.
that
Took him
in
right out of
Tampa
his
Bay,
shoes.
that
Yeah.
was incredible. Yeah. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see it. I'm actually going down to the game tomorrow night. It'll be the first Monday night
Oh,
game I'm
really?
going to. I've had a friend of mine reach out to me who I haven't talked to in a while. He's like, "Hey man, let's hang out. I got tickets. I got parking." I'm like, "All right, I'll take care of dinner, man, and let's go." So I'm kind
Nice.
of, yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. But like, getting older, I'm glad it's a 7 o'clock game and not the
7
later
o'clock.
game,
Yeah.
right? Goodness, like, so I'm heading down. We're heading down at like 4 o'clock, so it's gonna be fun. But yeah, the Lions under Dan Campbell respond very well to a loss. Even with all the injuries, again, here comes my prediction stuff. I know we're going to talk more about that. I think the Lions are going to be okay. I do. I do think they're a better team. I do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic matchup, and I want to get a little bit more into the matchup itself because I'm really what's really interesting to me is the quarterback matchup, and you got Jared Goff against Baker Mayfield, and just two guys. They're both kind of in the MVP conversation right now, and it's fascinating about they're two guys that were given up on by the original franchises. Goff
Mhm.
by the Rams and Mayfield by the Browns, and now they're finding they've hitting their primes and their career with different teams, and it's just cool to see guys kind of get a second chance. For Mayfield, this is like his third or fourth chance, and they're just
Yes.
making the absolute best of it, and they're playing the best football of their careers right now.
Well, I was going to say Baker Mayfield. Yeah, it's not just the Browns. It's the Rams. Remember, he signed with the Rams.
Well, Carolina
All right,
first, that
in
was kind of the first
Carolina, in
real
Carolina.
chance he had, and didn't play well at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. You're
And then just
right.
got thrown at the Rams. They were dealing with the Stafford injury at the time, so they were
Mhm.
just kind of grasping at straws. And remember, Mayfield came in, I think it was like the day of the game, right,
Yeah,
practically. I think
yeah,
he was given the game plan like that morning, and then
yeah.
he went out and played. I think it was Monday Night Football. It was either Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, and he went out and ended up winning the game. He had like an 80-yard drive to win the game or something like that. It was crazy.
Right. Well, I mean, he put up some sick numbers in college at
Yeah, oh yeah,
Oklahoma
oh
and
yeah.
Texas Tech, so he's always had the talent but he was always kind of a wild card and I felt like always I mean, obviously the comparisons are going to like Johnny Manziel like when I think of him, but very similar playing style, but he is a fun guy to watch and he only has one interception right now in the season. And like you mentioned, the two quarterbacks are playing awesome. The difference, this is the thing. I think Bucky Irving's a little banged up for the Buccaneers this game.
Yeah,
So
he's
rushing
out.
game
He's
wise,
out.
so they still have Rashad White, but the Lions running game, like at times, like it's easier for Jared Goff. Like he can rely on his dudes, right, hand the ball off to help him out a little bit instead of having to wing it around and win it by himself, which is a big thing for the Lions tomorrow night. We talked about them being banged up in the secondary, but like they have an advantage there. Mike Evans still might not be playing for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, he's a game time
And so
decision,
he's a
as is
game
Ibuka.
as in Abuka, who's had an awesome rookie season so far to this point. And so yeah, a big one for the Lions though, like not like secondary wise, Aleem McNeil is going to be healthy and playing tomorrow night for the first time. So um, good to
Yeah,
good to get him back. And so and this is the time of the year, Dan, this in football, like we're on to game 7 already. And like this is where the war of attrition starts to play out, right? In your depth and how good is your depth and our team's doing things to keep guys fresh and healthy. Like that's starting to take place right now where we're relying on your depth a little bit more. And something I was thinking about today was I wonder what changes the Lions staff has made, if any, when it comes to like like what I just said, keeping guys fresh. I mean, and healthy. And
Yeah,
like injuries in the NFL and in all sports, a lot of times are like freak things. Like the Aiden Hutchinson injury last year, like he got hurt playing football,
that's a
right?
freak.
You
Yeah,
know
that's
what
a
I
freak
mean? Like he
injury.
got hurt playing football. So I wonder though, like I hope not. I mean, they're pros, right? But they're also human. Hope in the back of anybody's mind, they're not thinking like, man, we gotta stay healthy. If we stay healthy, we're gonna be okay. And but like, geez, right now like again, their entire secondary's out. So I wonder if that's like creeping in a little bit already. But I do wonder after this week, the Lions have the bye as well, which is actually a pretty decent spot, I think, to have a bye week right here, week 8, right, just
Yeah,
right
they have
around
a
the
bye
middle of
week
the
after this
season.
game. Yeah.
Where last year wasn't it extremely early? I felt like it was a lot
Yes.
earlier,
Yeah.
and
I
then it
heard
just,
because were
yeah,
going through all those injuries and they
hmm
didn't have a bye week to lean
and
on.
yeah, and they couldn't just relax. So this will be a perfect bye week. Like this would be a great. I mean, if they can get this win and get to 5-2 going into the bye, and then they come back and host Minnesota, who's um,
Yeah.
that'd be big. That'd be big.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And you mentioned, staying healthy, and I'm interested to get your opinion on this. This is a topic I wanted to bring up with you that I don't think we've gotten into yet. But Maddox, one of the guys in the
Hmm.
secondary who came from Philly, I had heard before the season he kind of mentioned like, "Hey, I've never been in a team that practices this hard, this physical during the season." And I was wondering what your opinion is on that, because I know we've talked a lot about throughout our careers coaching, like how physical do we want to be in practice, like especially when your depth chart might not be as good as you want it to be, or you already got some guys out. How physical do you want your practice week to be, and when do you kind of let up a little bit when injuries start to hit your team?
That's a great question. I mean, we have our philosophies in high school, but and I know other coaches have different philosophies, and college and pro coaches have different philosophies. But like Dan Campbell, that's kind of who he is, and like that identity in the lines being physical. But I'd be curious to know if that same type of practice in a month, if you ask Avante Maddox that same thing, would they still be practicing that hard a month from now?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And they have those same similar type of practices, or if they're more in shells or helmets and things like that. I'm curious to see. By the
but
way, cool.
it's yeah.
I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say cool Avante Maddox stat or thought. He's from Detroit, which is cool. He was actually played in one of the high school All-Star games when Michigan played against Ohio State, and I had the opportunity to meet him when he was a senior in high
Oh,
school. So it was
wow.
a pretty, yeah, he was a cool dude. He went to Detroit, Martin Luther King High School, so that was kind of neat. So I've been a big fan of his. He was a cool dude, so it's pretty cool. So it's a bummer that he's not able to play
Yeah,
tomorrow night, which would have been really sweet. But yeah,
yeah.
I that's again. I mean, I'm wondering a month and like
Well, I
yeah, I'm
was just gonna
wondering.
say, let's say, Brian, like the Lions are viewed as one of, if not the toughest teams in the NFL. That's a
Yeah,
style they play with. That's what they're known for. Is that something you got to do in practice to gain that edge and to gain that physicality and to go into game in after game to have that physicality throughout 4 quarters? Do you have to practice that way in
that's
order to
something.
get that?
Gosh, I wish we had access to the Lions. I'd be curious to see,
Yeah,
like, if it's like, hey, man, every Wednesday we're having a lot, like our ones on offense, ones on defense, we're going live against each other. Like that'd be pretty awesome to witness if that's the truth. But that's a good question. I don't know. It's like everybody's different, and if everybody did it the same, I mean, if there was one tried and true way, everybody would be doing the same thing. I remember
yeah,
the Lions under Wayne Fonts, like he got criticized a lot for being going a lot lighter all the time, but all the players loved him because they said they were fresh, later on in the seasons. But that's interesting. I think at the end of the day, Dan Campbell is who he is, and but I'm gonna think that he would listen to his coaches or to his leaders if they said, "Hey, like we're pretty beat up. We need to lay off a little bit." I get the feeling like those guys in that locker room respect him enough. We've seen that, obviously, how much
yeah.
how hard they play for him. That if they had some concerns or were feeling it, he would respect it and listen to him.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So let's go ahead and get our predictions, Brian. I'll start with you. Obviously, this is a huge game. Not only for the Lions, they're trying to bounce back after the loss to the Chiefs. They're continuing the battle for the division, and they're continuing to battle for number one seed in the NFC. And this is going to be a big game to probably determine seeding at the end of the season. So Who do you got? What's your prediction for Monday Night Football, Lions Bucks?
All right. So the NFL is, we always talk about like anybody can beat anybody. Like the talent level for the most part is pretty even. It's not like college football where you get those extremes where different levels of talent. But the Buccaneers 5-1 record. Hear me out really quick. They beat Atlanta by 3. They beat Houston by a point. They beat the 0-7 Jets by 2 points. They did compete with the Eagles. They beat the Seahawks by 3. Granted, that was in Seattle, and they had a good victory against San Francisco. I mean, they're good. But they're obviously, like, your record is your record. Your record is what you said, you know. But I think the Lions, they do a great job coming back after a loss. I'm looking at something like 42-27. I do. I think the Lions, it's going to be awesome. They're going to be rocking. Obviously, I think the Buccaneers will be able to move the ball and score some points because of the Lions secondary, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Lions. The Lions, I think, are, to your point, are pretty pissed off about what happened in Kansas City. You know what I mean? I think it's the whole Detroit versus everybody thing. Like, screw that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow night.
Yeah. It brings up a question I got for it. We talked about the secondary. There's so many injuries. Baker Mayfield's potential to light them up. They're out without Bucky Irving. McNeil is back. Would you just let Aiden Hutchinson, hey, just get after it? I'm not worried if we get if we get beat on the edge on like an outside zone or something, we get beat, on some type of toss or something because you're rushing the quarterback, so be it. We'll live with that. But just attack Baker Mayfield from the first play to the last play and just get after him.
I think in a lot of ways that's their intention with him anyway, but I would agree with you even more so this week. Like, if the Buccaneers are going to beat the Lions tomorrow night, how are they going to do it? Like, Mayfield is going to go off, right? If they beat you because their backup running back, right, runs it down your throat, then so be it. You know what I mean? Because I don't think they're going to consistently be able to do that against the Lions defense. So I'm with you there. I mean,
that's what I'm just thinking from a coaching perspective. Like, if I got Aiden Hutchinson and I know the situation my defense is in, I'm like, hey, just do whatever you got to do. Like, if you got a swim move inside and that you're not protecting the outside edge, so
sure,
like, you got to get to
worth the risk.
And that's the only thing you got to be thinking about tomorrow is get to the
quarterback. I definitely, like I said, I am curious to see what the scheme is going to look like with the depleted secondary. I have a hard time thinking.
It's got to be a lot of zone,
which
goes against what they want to do.
But it is even with. I mean, I guess, like, again, this is some advanced scouting stuff. Like, so the Buccaneers receivers, if they don't have Mike Evans, right, and they don't have Ibuka, like Sterling Shepard, like, are they comfortable? Are they comfortable with their secondary tomorrow night going against the Buccaneers, like 2 and 3 receivers, right? If that's the case and they want to play some man, then so be it. You know what I mean? But if they still view it as it's a mismatch problem, then I'm with you. They probably will play some zone.
Because they played a lot of zone against the Chiefs and Mahomes.
They did, right?
So you got to think they're going to be thinking, like, maybe we just play man and take our chances. Maybe. We get beat once or twice, so be it. But we got to take our chances. We got to try to get to Baker Mayfield.
What's funny is last year, I always said to one of my 5 or 6 coaching group chats, like, 3rd and long, I'm like, all right, the Lions are going to play man and bring pressure, and I just felt like inevitably, like, whoever they were playing was going to get a first down, and it drove me crazy because they never got home. But I mean, whatever you got to do.
The difference is you got guys that can get home.
Now that's for sure.
Guys that absolutely can get home
for sure. So now it's. It's gonna be fun. This is where the chess match of coaching comes into play, and football comes into play, which is a lot of fun. It'll be fun to watch, and then, you're gonna see what adjustments take place throughout the game. But again, if Tampa Bay wins, I have a hard time thinking the Buccaneers are gonna win by being able to run it down the line's throat. I'm with you there.
Yeah. So that's going to be fascinating. And that's the most fascinating part of the game is how do they utilize Agent Hutchinson and how do they protect their secondary? What scheme are they going to use and how are they going to approach that? And ultimately, I think the Lions, from an offensive perspective, are going to try to control the ball. And they tried to do that against the Chiefs, and they did it that first drive. And I think that penalty call really kind of took a lot of wind out of their sails. But they had like a 10-minute drive to start the game. And I think they're going to try a similar approach in this game and control the ball, run the ball, a lot of David Montgomery, a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs. That's kind of where I see this game going. I don't necessarily see it being big time high scoring game because of that fact. I think they're going to try to
Mhm.
control the clock and have longer sustained drives. But I do see the Lions winning this game. Like we talked about, they have not lost back to back games since 2022, and really since this run began. They have not lost back to back games, and I don't see it happening here. And if Tampa Bay had the receivers, it'd be a different story.
Yeah, it would be. I
But
see.
yeah,
I don't think it's gonna be close. I
I
guess
think it
maybe
is.
I
I think it's going to be a
did.
good game. I think it's
Okay.
going to be a good game. I just you can't have your whole secondary out and just say they're going to blow them out.
No.
That's a
Yeah,
lot to ask of a lot of backups, even if
it
it
is.
is not Tampa Bay's top guys. And a couple of those guys are questionable. They could play.
Sure.
They won't be 100%, but it is possible they could play. But
Sure.
even if they don't, it's going to be a challenge. But I do think the Lions are going to come out with this game. I'll say 28-20, somewhere in that range. I
Okay.
think it'll be a one-score game, be a good game throughout. One of those games, kind of like their playoff game they had a couple years ago, where the Lions, it was a good game, but you never really felt like the Lions were going to lose it. You just
Yeah.
felt like you
Right.
always felt like the Lions kind of had control of the game, even when it was tied. Going into the fourth quarter, you never felt nervous. Really, you just thought, yeah, the Lions
Hmm.
they're gonna find a way to win this game. That's how
Yep.
I feel like this Monday night game
Okay.
is going to be.
I'm good. I'm with you.
So should be a good one. And yeah, have fun with that one tomorrow night, Brian.
Okay, I'm
That's gonna
looking
be
for
quite the atmosphere.
you know me. I typically don't like crowds, so that's why I said I'm glad it's the early night though. But it'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be an experience. It'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to finish up here with the Lions talk. We're going to jump into some college football because is there a lot of stuff going on in the college football world, especially locally and within the Big Ten. And we'll start off with Michigan. Get a big bounce back win after going out west to USC last week and just not looking good. Not looking good at all. A lot of struggles. Bryce Underwood didn't look great. The defense looked terrible. Play calling was a little bit questionable, I thought. I mean, they go with the first drive in USC and you start out with 3 straight passes. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he had 300
Mm.
yards rushing against USC last year. You got a freshman quarterback on the road and you start with three straight passes. I'm like, right off the bat, I was like, oh, this doesn't look good. And it was a bad showing against USC last week. And there was a lot of talks that there was some dissension in the locker room and some different things, and some tough meetings were had and some tough things were said. And a lot of question was how they were going to perform. Are they going to fall apart, or is this going to bring them together and they're going to play as a team and get going and play Michigan football again? And man, they really showed up, and especially in that second half, it looked like the Michigan of old that we're used to seeing, where they're just controlling both sides of the line of scrimmage, especially running the football, and a lot of tough runs, long drives, controlling the football, and defensive line getting after it. They're causing turnovers, and they just looked really, really good this week.
Yeah. Yep. The second half was huge. I mean, a little sloppy in the first half, but
Yeah.
listening to the geniuses, the experts, I guess, so to speak, on the radio and different podcasts and stuff, when they were picking this game, there were a lot of people that took Washington, whether against the line, which I think was like 5, or straight up. And I was kind of surprised, only because, again, it's challenging. I've talked about this before, and I don't have the records in front of me, going from the West Coast to this part of the country to play a college football game, and it's not easy. And I'm not saying that's why
When the teams are
Washington lost.
evenly matched,
I
it's a
just
difference. It's a difference
I
maker.
I think I think it is, to a degree, right? And I think that's something you got to overcome. And although, granted, I said that, and then UCLA came and lit up Michigan State a week ago. But I mean, but still,
I don't necessarily think those are evenly matched, and
Definitely
we'll
not.
get into that a
No,
little bit.
yeah, definitely not. And so, yeah, no, I agree. And it was a good win. And I think sometimes, as fans, especially, Michigan fans in particular, right? You're riding that wave of emotion a little bit. And I think there were a lot of fans who were okay, Bryce Underwood, the freshman, they're still pretty young. It's gonna take some time to gel and things. But yeah, I mean, it was a really good bounce back win, and now Michigan has set themselves up to have. And I'm not. I know we talked a little bit earlier, Dan. We think their schedule is very favorable. I have a feeling, though. I know you're going to talk about that in a second. I can see them be a stumble, maybe not necessarily a loss or like a blow, anything like that. There is one game that worries me a little bit on their behalf, and I'll talk about that when
Yeah,
you're
so
ready to.
I
Yeah.
got the schedule pulled up here, and I mentioned it on Facebook on our page, and And I just mentioned that, like, hey, things are looking a little favorable for Michigan right now. And if they control their own destiny for a playoff spot, if they can finish 10-2, uh, they would make the playoffs. I don't think there's any doubt. But the road to get there, to get to that Ohio State game and make that Ohio State game a win and get in situation for them, they have Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland. Just on paper, that I would think Michigan is going to be favored, and maybe favored by double digits in quite a few of those games. So it's a favorable schedule over the next 4 weeks. But Brian, where do you see a potential slip up
I don't
within
even
these
think
next 4 games that Michigan has?
if it's anything, I think it's Maryland. And
Maryland?
then for multiple reasons. Maryland. So right now, Maryland is 4-3. They play Indiana this week. They're not world beaters. Their schedule was pretty light at the beginning. Their best win is probably at Wisconsin, but everybody's beating Wisconsin right now. And I know we're going to talk about Luke Fickell later,
Oof,
but
yeah, we can talk about them in a minute too.
but they've had their three losses have been by a combined 10 points to Washington, Nebraska, and UCLA, who's we just talked about is playing a lot better. But I could see that potentially just maybe not a loss, but definitely more competitive. Where I think the other games, like I think, yeah, I'm with you. Michigan's going to hammer them, and I think this week is going to be the end of Jonathan Smith and Michigan State.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm with you, and then that sets up which I know you're going to bring up the interesting scenario going into the final game against Ohio State,
Yeah.
which
So
yeah,
let's
which is going to
let's get into that for a second. I don't love to play the hypothetical game, but just looking at the schedule, Michigan should be favored the next 4 games. Let's say they win those 4, right? And now you got a big time matchup with Ohio State, and I think Ohio State should probably run the table. You never know; they could slip up, but I think they will be undefeated going into that game as the number 1 team in the country, having not beaten Michigan this decade, lost 4 straight to Michigan. The embarrassing loss that they had last year, where they were just by far the better team, and obviously they ended up winning the national championship game and lost to a much a very down Michigan team who lost five games that season. So Ohio State's out for blood, but they've always been out for blood. So they were out for blood last year. So it's not like that change. It's not like that narrative or aspect of it changes. And they have to go into the big house. And if Michigan can find a way to win that game, you could be looking at I call it the doomsday scenario for what I love about this game and what it's always means so much. You could be looking at a potential for a back-to-back game where Michigan and Ohio State play each other.
God, which would be awful. It would just be awful. And so it would. We both agree it would be awful because, like, it. Okay, so let's pretend you're Ryan Day, right? And you're going into that game against Michigan, the game, right? You're going to play them the following week. Truthfully, to Ohio State, if they're undefeated going into the Michigan game, they potentially are a playoff team, whether they win either of those games.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're potentially a playoff team, whether they win
and
or if they
knowing
split.
what they did last year, I mean,
I know.
what do you do? I mean, if you got any guys that are banged up, do you even consider playing them?
I agree. Of course, everybody will say, "Oh, in that game, it's like there are still people," and this is the ridiculousness, which is the ridiculousness of the current format. Which there are people that still say, "No, the winner of the Michigan Ohio State game is more important than any postseason result," and that's just crazy talk. I'm sorry, it just is with the way college football is now. It just is like the end result, the college national, the champion is more important than this game's result. And it didn't used to be like that, which is why we thought, we think the sport was really cool back in the day. That is a weird scenario. And I've always liked watching Ohio State just because I was a fan of their offense. And we've talked about this before. And again, against Michigan last year, right? We talked about this and you mentioned it, how Ryan Day, it just seemed like, oh yeah, we're the tougher team. We're going to do this and we're going to play this style and show everybody we're the tougher team. And then they go in the playoffs and then just let loose. right? And they scored a ton of points, and they had some fun winging it around to Jeremiah Smith and those dudes. The way they're playing right now is like they are playing really loose, and they are playing that
It's like they
offensive
just
style
pick
that
up right where they left off
it's
in the
right,
playoffs.
right. So it'll be pretty fun to watch that game at the end of the regular season if they keep doing what they're doing now.
Yeah,
Because Julian Sayin is pretty good. Like he's
yeah.
he's
He's playing a
really
lot
fun
better
to
than I
watch.
anticipated.
And
Yeah.
and nobody in this area wants to hear it, but like as a head coach running an organization, no, Matt Patricia was an idiot, right? But like that dude can coach ball and he knows
Coach.
defense and he's got their defense playing
If you're
extremely
not sure,
well.
just ask him. You
Yeah, that is
know.
fair. That is quite true. Yeah, that is quite true. But I mean, I think your scenario is that's accurate, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well,
It's just
I should
crazy.
mention, Indiana, they would have in that scenario they would have to drop a game because if they run the table, they'll have a spot in that Big Ten championship game. But it just put weird scenarios. Like if
Hmm.
Ohio State runs the table and they go into that game, there's a potential they could already have a Big Ten championship spot locked up. They're guaranteed to already have a playoff spot locked up.
Yep.
It's just weird. It's just weird
Is
scenario. When
okay.
in years past
Is
it would have been number one Ohio State against going into the
okay.
big house. They haven't won in the last 4 times. Like it just the narrative changes and doesn't
So how
feel as
about
special as they used to.
so how about this for a scenario though, then? Okay, so Indiana runs the table. They've got their spot clinched. Ohio State's going in the Michigan game, knowing, of course, you haven't want to beat them in 4 years. Like, man, you really want to win this game. But like, even if they lose that game, they don't have to play the next week against Indiana for a game that doesn't mean a
Potentially, yeah,
thing,
yeah.
which mean a game that doesn't mean a thing because they're in the playoff. They have one
And
loss. You're not keeping
they
them.
would have a home game. They
They
would have a home
would
game just like last year. They would have home
just like
game in the
yeah.
first
You're
round,
not
and then
keeping
it's
them.
neutral sites after that.
Like, what are we doing? Yeah,
It means not. It makes a lot
it
of
doesn't.
the last games
It
mean
does.
nothing.
The championship games now are irrelevant. Completely
Yeah.
100%
I think that's
irrelevant.
going to change in the future. They might just get rid
Has
of them
to. Has
or
to.
change
Like
the
there
format
was a
completely.
time I thought they were pretty cool. But yeah, now when both of those teams are going to be in the playoff, what's the point? What's
Yeah.
the point? What's the point? So, yeah, I'm with you. Doomsday
A
scenario. I
trophy, I
mean, I
guess.
want to
That's
see
about
it.
it.
I mean, a trophy, I guess, which what to help with recruiting. Like those teams need help
I
recruiting anyway, right? Like
I don't know.
another like what who cares? Like that's why like as much as so to use the college basketball analogy and I say this about Michigan State a lot. Like they win a lot of regular season Big Ten championships. Like both them and Michigan have won their share of Big Ten tournaments. Like last year Michigan State won the regular season, Michigan won the Big Ten tournament. Like who cares? Like you said, like I mean, it matters to those kids and those coaches, I guess. Great,
To some
but like
degree, it's about the
to
playoffs,
some
though.
degree, but
It's all about the playoffs.
it's about the tournament, which in college basketball, I heard they're trying to expand. Talking about the expansion there to 70, whatever. So it's just a nightmare. Like, just yeah. So anyway, though, I digress. I digress.
Yeah. So you brought up Jonathan Smith, and man, oh man. And so he's one of three, I think, that are one
Mm.
is already gone, and James Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just start there a little bit. We'll get into Jonathan Smith and the rest of the coaches here in a second. I want to start with James Franklin, who just a few weeks ago had the number 2 team in the country. They're playing the biggest game of the day. It's a whiteout at Penn State. They're playing Oregon. It's overtime. They're up by 7. In that moment, you're thinking James Franklin set, man. He's the coach of Penn State for years to come. He's about to finally get that big win that we had talked about a few weeks ago that he's just
Yep.
starving for, and Penn State fans are starving for. They end up not winning that game. Oregon comes back and wins. And it's another loss in a big game for James Franklin. But you're thinking, they look good though, man. They really good. They went toe to toe with Oregon, and they're still one of the top 10 teams in the country. They're still one of the top teams in the Big Ten. They'll battle for a Big Ten championship game, and they go out to UCLA, and they drop that game. I'm not sure what of a favorite. I think it was 3 or maybe 4 touchdown favorite that Penn State was when they dropped that game, and then that just started that started the downfall for Franklin. And then they come back to play Northwestern, and they end up losing that game to Northwestern, and he's fired the next day. So, what are your thoughts on everything that has gone down after 12 years with Penn State? Kind of took that program to another level, I thought. And I mean, they were just a play away from going to the national championship game last year, and for them just to be done with them. A tough stretch, obviously, but man, sometimes that stuff just happens, man. You go on a little bit of bad stretch, and they don't even give him the benefit of the doubt. They don't give him any more time. Like he's done.
Mhm.
They don't even let him finish the season. He's just done, and
Yep.
that's it.
Nobody's gonna feel sorry for him because of his buyout, right? Obviously, the $50 million buyout or whatever.
Yeah,
But that being said, it there was a time in college football, and this is really for all the coaches, and I'll get into a little more detail how I feel about Jonathan Smith when we get to that. But the timeline has changed in college football, where it used to be, okay, he's got to get 4 years, get his guys in, get his recruits in, get his staff established, right? Get comfortable recruiting um, in his home state, and let those guys develop and wait a couple years. Like you think about the one I remember from my childhood is Wisconsin Barry Alvarez. Like they were garbage for the longest time, and he got there, and it was slowly but surely, 3 wins, 5 wins, 5 wins, and then right they went to the Rose Bowl a couple years. So it's like that doesn't happen anymore with college football. And part of it is because of the Kurt Signetti effect, right? And where
yeah.
like you can get good, or right now Georgia Tech is 6-0 and they're ranked 12th. Like you have the ability now in college football and the NIL and transfer and all that stuff to get good immediately. And so coaches aren't afforded that luxury. And so James Franklin, I think my I guess my question for Penn State is who's better? Like
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
you know what I mean? Like and there might be like I don't know who all the guys like they've talked about Matt Rule having ties there. But
Is he
who you
better?
I
Is he
don't think
better?
so. No, I don't think so. Like Urban Meyer's not going there. Is like who's I mean it's all about I mean there's so much that goes into it. It's all about fit. It's about everything. Like you could argue this past offseason that the greatest football coach of all time other than Nick Saban, although Nick Saban I could say he's the greatest football coach of all time, went to North Carolina and he's under 500. Right? So like it's all
Wow,
about no, but
that's
what my point is though is there's a lot of layers to it, right? Like North Carolina could say they have the best coach in the history of football as their head coach and they're not winning immediately. Like it's not easy to win. I mean, there's different things going on. I don't know who Penn State gets it's better. Is Dan Lanning going in there? No, Lanning hasn't won a national championship. Is Ryan Day going there? No. Like who's going?
I
Who's
don't
going
know
to
who
Penn
I don't know how
State?
you top him.
Who's go?
I don't know how you
I mean,
top him.
right now in the grand scope of college football, it's not like this coach is just the best, and Kirby Smart going there. No, like you know what I mean. Like who? What are we doing? And so it's interesting. I don't know. Um, I, I think it would have made more sense after the season, right? If they were like, all right, we're done, we're ready to try something new. Because it's not like they're gonna
I think
hire
it was I think they owed it to him to let him finish the season out.
maybe, but I don't even
See
but
if he can turn this thing around. Maybe you get a
well,
big upset against Ohio State or something. You never
sure,
know.
sure.
Like let
And
him get
not
the
even
opportunity to finish the season.
but not even I don't even look at it as like okay, I agree with you. And I don't even know they'll look at it like they owed him anything. If they were done and it was like, okay, like he's not getting us over the top, fine, wait till the end. Because it's not like all of a sudden they're gonna hire somebody to all of a sudden like, hey, start thinking recruiting and building those relationships or those transfers, whatever. Like that wasn't going to happen. And so what's the point now? They just look like they just look bad. The universe it just looks dysfunctional, right? It just doesn't look good. I
I
I
guess the
don't
only
know.
thing I would say is maybe they just thought it was going to be so toxic for that the home games that it was worth it just to end it because they knew they were going to end it at the end of the season anyways. Like, hey, instead of having these awful environments at home that become a joke and it's all over,
So
social media and everywhere that like, hey, they're constantly getting booed and it just becomes a joke. The home games start to become a joke. Maybe that's what they were thinking from a PR standpoint. Hey, let's just end this thing now.
so to your point, okay, so they lose to Oregon, they lose to Oregon. They have the big letdown against UCLA. Okay, he gets fired. So excuse me, then they lost to Northwestern. You're 3-3. You fire your coach. You're probably going to lose to Iowa. Either I mean, at bet, let's say realistically, if you looked at the rest of their schedule and James Franklin is still there, Okay, Iowa still could have been a loss. So then there's
Iowa State and Indiana. God,
3-6.
those are
So
their
then
next
you're
two
looking
games.
at they're looking at potentially 6-6. And then at the end of the year, no, gosh, I don't know. It's crazy how quickly things change. How quickly things change.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
wild. And we can wrap it up with James Franklin's situation, but I do get it. Not necessarily where Penn State's going to go, because I think that's going to be tough. I mean, I don't know who's going to be out there. Maybe it ends up being Matt Rule. We'll see. I don't know if that's an improvement over James Franklin, but we'll see what Penn State does. But where do you think Franklin goes? He seemed pretty adamant that he's still a coach. Like, he ain't going
he
to broadcasting or anything like
well,
that. He's going to be coaching next season, and there's
well,
going to be
I
some spots
guess
for him.
there will be some spots. I guess it depends. Like he obviously had he was at Vanderbilt previously. It was awesome there. And then I almost feel like Penn State was like his dream job. And like his final, in theory, his final stop. But who knows? He'll end up he'll have a job. Might not. Is it a Power Five job? Is he at a MAC school? I don't know. I think it all depends on fit and what schools need. He's still a young guy. Um, Florida is open right now, right? Again, Michigan State might be open.
That might be a spot. That would be an
That
interesting
might be,
spot, Florida.
which is wild to think about, because I recall like when Mark D'Antoni was at Michigan State, like something, I don't know the specifics, but those two did not get along. Those two did not get along. But I'm sure the current Michigan State administration doesn't care. Like whatever. Like, you know what I mean? You got to do what you got to do. But I mean, it would be a natural, like, hey, he's got Big Ten ties. I could see that happening. He'll
Well,
have
another
options.
yeah. Yeah, he's going to have options for sure, and probably some pretty good options. But
Hmm.
like I said, you mentioned Florida. I think that's a pretty that might be a pretty interesting spot for both teams. I think that'd be a
Hmm.
pretty good fit. But we'll see what happens, and I'm sure some more spots are going to open up at the end of the season and that. So we'll see what happens. But another
No
Big
doubt.
Ten school is Wisconsin, and we talked about Wisconsin a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago before Michigan went and played them, and we talked about how just an awful of a situation that has become. And what a questionable hire Luke Fickell was for Wisconsin, and that has turned into a nightmare. Like, Wisconsin had played a certain way of football for so long, and they've just gotten away with it with the Luke Fickell hire, and they are awful. They are awful. They are. I was trying to watch that Ohio State game, and I'm just like, I'm like yelling at the TV. I'm like, this is terrible. Like, what are you doing? So many
Mm-hmm.
questionable decisions that he was making, and just the way they were playing. Like, granted, they are down to their third quarterback, which, I mean, that makes it incredibly tough. They've had injuries to the quarterback position, but still, just the total way they looked is just a bad product right now,
Which
Brian. And
is
I can't see him lasting much longer here.
no, and they have to go to Oregon next,
Yeah,
and which is just it's just mind-boggling to think of Luke Fickell's career trajectory. Like when he was at Cincinnati and left for Wisconsin, like he was almost at Michigan State. Like there were some places he probably could have gotten an SEC job, if he wanted to, and it just hasn't worked out at Wisconsin. And um, I don't know, like, Wisconsin back in the day when they had success used to play a specific brand of football, right? Where they had always turned out awesome running backs and awesome offensive linemen. And I don't know. I've heard that they've gotten away from that a little bit with him being there, but just I'm with you, man. Shocking. Did not see this coming. Where I thought I didn't think they would necessarily be at the level of Barry Alvarez or those guys, right? But definitely didn't see them bottoming out like this. Like that's pretty bad, and I think
yeah.
that's a good
The
job.
last 2 weeks, yeah, the last 2 weeks, losing to Iowa 37-0 at home. And then you come back and lose to Ohio State. Now, obviously, Ohio State's the number one team in the country, but to get shut out once again at home,
Yeah,
I believe it was 34-0.
yeah,
But more the Iowa game 2 weeks
yeah,
ago, 37-0 to Iowa.
yeah,
Iowa doesn't score points historically and currently. They're not a team that puts up points, and to put up 37 and you get shut out.
yeah.
Wow, man, it's just amazing how far they've fallen.
Yeah. And he's the only guy we're talking about so far that's been in the 14 college football playoff. The other,
Yeah,
just, at Cincinnati. It's just, um, you're right. Dan didn't, I just didn't see it coming. And like I said, I'm curious, man. He could have had some other jobs, but This is one where more so than James Franklin, like right now, after those two most recent results, I could see him being let go like this time of the year. Like I'm surprised he hasn't been let go already, I guess. Is this is what,
Yeah,
his second or third year? This is his third year already.
I believe
Um,
so. Yes,
God, like right? Like
and
and
it
his
seems like it's just
record
getting worse and worse.
his record is his he coached in their bowl game in 2022, but then 2023, 2024, 7-6, 5-7, and now 2-5. They might not win another game.
They might not win
Um,
another game. Yeah,
and so yeah, just not. I mean, it's very very surprised, and I don't know. Who knows? Right? What Wisconsin is like in terms of NIL, like what
yeah,
resources they're going to give their coaches and him, and for their football program. Who knows if they're behind there? But not good, not good.
yeah. Not at
Which
all.
is
And another
which
tough.
sucks
Oh,
for
go ahead.
which doesn't that suck for I mean it sucks as a fan and it's the reality of both football and basketball especially like if the school doesn't have the NIL resources or isn't willing to pony up there's no shot. You know what I mean? There's just no
Yeah,
shot.
it's
It's
all about money now, man.
yeah.
It's it's as close as professional sport as you can get without it being truly professional.
Yep.
But it's yeah, it's a different world. It's a different world now. And
Yep.
speaking of tough situations and coaches on the I don't even want to say the hot seat, like the seats are on fire.
Hmm.
Michigan State, man, oh man, Jonathan Smith. There was talks of after the UCLA game, homecoming game for Michigan State, and they just look terrible. I mean,
Hmm.
UCLA is a different team. Like they're just a different team. I don't think we can talk about them in the same sense of where they were the first few games of the year because they're just different. They made a lot of changes with their coaching staff, especially the play callers. With Neuheisel stepping in, Rick Neuheisel's son stepping in as the offense coordinator, they look like a completely different team. But still, Michigan State looked terrible on their homecoming game against UCLA, and we talked about how it's it can be tough for West Coast teams to come out east, and it didn't seem to factor UCLA at all in that game because they just took it to Michigan State. And then Michigan State, there was a lot of talks about Jonathan Smith after that game. A lot of fans want him gone,
Yeah.
and they go into Indiana, and it's not much better. Indiana
No.
he takes it to them. They played a little bit, kind of pretty tough in the first half, but Indiana pretty much controlled that, and then took it to them in the second half. So,
Yeah.
but it is Michigan State week, so a lot of fans wanted him gone after like pretty much tomorrow or either today or tomorrow. But I think you got to give him a chance to at least coach the Michigan game, don't you? You don't want to go into
Yeah.
a coaching firing and deal with that when it's Michigan week and
Right.
Wednesday.
I know. I remember. I think it was Bobby Williams who got fired after the Michigan game. I think I can't remember
After
the
the
score
Michigan game, right?
after
Yeah,
the Michigan game, right? And he admitted as much. He said, somebody said, "Well, do you think you lost your team?" And he's like, "I don't know. I probably did, or something like that." And it's like, "All right, like you got to go then." And
yeah, you got to
yeah,
go.
it's so again going back to it. The problem right now is that he's not recruiting high school at a high level already in his first 2 years. Like they're best recruiting class. Like I don't have it in front of me, but I don't think they're. I mean, they're not even close to a top 25. And like the transfer portal, yes, Aiden Childs, but like it's not like Kurt Signetti or some other teams or.
Yeah,
Right. And so, like, he's not like, I just think college coaches now, with that high number of like your contract and the way the expectations have changed, where other schools have gotten better, you just don't have that luxury of waiting anymore. And the only thing that's with all of this, right, and with all the guys we've mentioned, is like, okay, so maybe with a new AD at Michigan State, maybe and going into this offseason, it's like, okay, our NIL is going to be this, right? We're going to hit the transfer portal hard, and this is our plan. And you have a lot of West Coast connections. Like this is your chance now to make it right. We don't know, right? We're not in those conversations, but just like like he was an interesting hire anyway. Like I knew there were some
yeah.
other guys like Jed Fish and stuff who were candidates and
Oh, Luke
finalists,
Fickle. I
and
mean,
Luke Fickle. Remember, I
he
think it was
tried.
with the wife who said no, we're not going there.
Yeah,
But like look at his college coaching career. Like he played quarterback at Oregon State and then started there as a GA. Every stop is on the West Coast. Every stop, as a position coach or coordinator,
he might just go
Montana.
right back there.
He might just go back and maybe UCLA, although UCLA just smoked him. Like
Yeah, I
That
don't
was
think
the
of
that was the
UCLA. I think
joke.
UCLA might be
No,
pretty fired up with what their
I
coach
think so
situation
too.
now.
I think so too. I think
But
I
Oregon
want
State is open now. He could just go right
or
back.
it right. It could be, and it could just be like, hey, you know what? Shake hands and say, you know what, this didn't work, and get out. And I can see that being the case, but it's not good. And you talk a lot about culture, and I know Michigan, at least in my view, was criticized a lot for, oh, like you don't want somebody outside of a Michigan man, and that's kind of corny and stuff. But there's some truth to it, obviously, right? Like when you hire, when you want people that know what it's like to be at Michigan. You want those guys running your programs, or especially football. But like Michigan State, I'm curious if there's anybody off the Mark D'Antonio tree, or somebody like that you're like, you know what, like we got to get back to that. When they had the success, because this is not cutting it.
It's
And
always going to be tough, though. You're surrounded by Notre Dame, Michigan, and Ohio
oh,
State.
the different, and I
It's gonna
remember.
always be tough.
So, and I remember when the Mark D'Antonio years in Michigan was going through their transition with Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, where I remember having this conversation. I said Michigan State's time is now because they are recruiting different types of players that Michigan was, because Rich Rod was introducing his version of the spread, right? Which now everybody seems to be doing a version of it, right? But at the time it wasn't like that. And so Michigan State was getting guys, that Michigan wasn't getting, because they were recruiting different types of players, right? And so that's why Michigan like was the big offensive lines, the fullbacks, and they were grinding it out and had some awesome running backs. And Michigan was just getting lighter players, and it was just different then, right? And so Michigan State took advantage of that turmoil in Ann Arbor. You're right. Since then, though, that has changed, obviously, and it's back to Michigan State having to recruit against Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan. The difference now, though, is the college football landscape has changed still,
Yeah.
right? So, like, if you can hire somebody, so again, Kurt Signetti brings a bunch of dudes who are 22 and 23 years old on his roster, you know what I'm saying, from James Madison, and boom, they're having success, right? And so, like, your umbrella of who to look for as a coach, maybe that dynamic and those requirements are different than they used to be. Maybe now it's not, hey, he has ties to the city of Detroit or the Michigan area or the western part of the state for a recruiting advantage. Now it just might be somebody who's gonna, like we said, bring in those hired guns and right, get good immediately. In a weird way, like we said, we don't like it, but it is kind of fascinating. I think to a degree, it is fascinating, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's completely changes the game.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess in terms of that, I mean, you talked about it like it's the schools that are going to have the money.
Yep.
So when you're trying to get a coach, does his recruiting ties even really matter that much anymore? And is it really more of us like, hey, let's
Probably,
get the best X's and O's coach
yeah, probably
because
not.
we'll just get our NIL money from our alumni and we'll
Yeah,
pay the players. We'll get the players in. We'll do the recruiting with our
yeah,
money.
yeah.
But let's get the best X's and O's coach, the best, practice coach, the best X's and O's coach, the best guy at developing talent, and we'll handle the recruiting. Let's get the best
It's
coach we can get.
well, arguably the best quarterback in the SEC right now is Trinidad Chambliss, who's from the western part of Michigan, and he played at Fair State, and then went to you know what I'm saying, and then he's at Old
Yeah,
Miss, like doing some things, like it's.
it's a different world, man. It's a different
Isn't that
world.
crazy? Like who to thunk it? Like it wasn't. It's not like Archie Manning at Old Miss, who he's a highly rated quarterback, recruit, and you develop him and becomes a Hall of Famer. But like, nope, it's just a D2 guy coming in and he's pretty good right now. And
Yeah.
he's 23 years old. Like I said, he's 23 years old. So it's just different. It's just different.
Where do you think Michigan State's going to go then? I think we're pretty much on the same boat. Like probably after the Michigan game, Jonathan Smith's gone.
So
At
here's what
worst, it's at the end of the season. But
here's
where do they
what
go from here?
here's what always bothered me as a growing up as a Michigan State fan. Like whenever, okay, because it's always the Michigan State comparison, as much as people don't want to say it is or always is. When Michigan was was in the ever in the market for a head coach, like let's say something happens in the next year or two with Sharon Moore, right? There's gonna be names on there that you would never think should be on there. You know what I mean? Like big time NFL guys names, because Michigan is basically run like an NFL franchise. Right? I mean, there are people that I think Michigan is a better coaching job than like the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, you know what I mean? Just in terms of the organizational
Yeah.
structure and things like that. And so Michigan State wise, I just, I've never felt like they were in the market for that. Like you never hear the name John Gruden. I guess there was one time I remember, I think before they hired John L. Smith, I think Marvin Lewis, who was the defensive coordinator of the Ravens at the time, right? He was a name that I thought was also like a top candidate. But other than that, I don't know. Like I said, I hope it's somebody. I don't have a list in front of me, but I hope it's somebody that with ties to Mark D'Antonio, ties of
Yeah.
that era. If you can get back to that and really like, because that's when the Michigan State had the most success and the most fun, and they were at the time they were taking a lot of 2, 3, and 4 stars and turning those guys into NFL guys. Again, one of the best running backs ever for a short time, Le'Veon Bell, the Michigan State guy, right? So it's like
Yeah.
they have the ability to get talent. And yeah, it's I can't say for sure. I can't give you names at the moment, but I think it's somebody that has to have some link to that era.
Maybe someone
Yeah.
just off the radar, instead of going a big name, maybe you get a top tier assistant who's chomping at the bit to get a head coaching opportunity. I mean, you got to nail it. You got to get the right guy, obviously, but the tough spot for them, and I'm not sure how much, what their money situation is or how much this
Yes.
plays a factor. But you fire Jonathan Smith, you get a third coach, you're going to be paying three coaches at the same time. You're still
God.
going to be paying Mel Tucker.
Yeah.
So it's just that's a lot of money to be spending on coaching, and you've already gotten it wrong twice. I mean, Mel Tucker was a different situation. It looked like it was going to be a good
Correct.
situation for a while, and then the stuff that happened, and he had to be gone. You made the mistake with Jonathan Smith clearly, and
Yeah.
now this is the third time. Now you got to get this right. So do you pay big money for a big time
Well,
coach?
that's
Now you're paying three coaches at the same time, or do you go or the route I think they should go and try to find a top tier assistant?
yeah. I mean, again, that's the question. Like, how much are they willing to give the coach, and then how much are they willing to put into their NIL? You know what I mean? I think David Blatt, right, is a name of their. No, that's not David Blatt. He's the former coach. Hang on. Uh, looks good. Excuse me, Bat. Thank you, Bat.
Oh, the new AD.
Yes, thank you. Like he supposedly got hired because like at Georgia Tech, he had some significantly positive fundraising
Fundraising, yeah.
moments, right? And so with that being said, so it looks like they're going to get the money and they're going to raise the money enough to get the high quality players that they need. But that's again, that's to be seen. That's to be seen. So, but like I'm looking at a list of guys. They're talking about Chuck Martin, who has ties to the state of Michigan, the head coach at Miami of Ohio. Manny Diaz, who's been around a little bit. He's been a head coach at Miami. He's now the DC at Duke. Um, Chris Kleiman at Kansas State is another one. You'd have to think Michigan State has more resources than Kansas State. So that, but none of these guys have ties to that era. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And it's just, we might as well go ahead and talk about it a little bit. But Michigan State next week. And they're obviously just, not the situation you wanted to be in going into this game. But, somebody mentioned it on Facebook. They said, yeah, Michigan State's going to win. And I talked about, Michigan running the table. And they're like, Michigan State's going to pull up the upset. And then you get all the Michigan fans bashing this guy. But I
yeah,
said it. I mentioned it on there. I'm like, I've seen worse Michigan State teams beat better
yeah,
versions of
and
this
and
Michigan team in the past in
yeah,
this rivalry.
yeah. And again, last year nobody thought Michigan was going to beat Ohio State. Right? I mean, there are
Yeah, exactly.
things.
That's a
There are
perfect
just
example. Perfect example.
there are crazy things. By the way, a name I just popped into my head thinking about as a potential replacement. We just joked about him, Matt Patricia.
Oh God,
Oh,
I don't think that's going to
how
be
would that,
accepted
man?
by the
No.
fan base,
So
man.
no, you know what's funny? I saw on Twitter a little bit ago. So if Michigan would have lost to Washington, which they obviously didn't, we talked about that. Like, would this have been the buyout bowl? Right, Sharon. Isn't that crazy? You know what I'm saying?
Loser
Isn't that
goes
crazy?
home, literally.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like, yeah, I think, God, Michigan State is such a mess right now.
They are. They are.
I
That
don't
makes it
think
it just sucks though, you know.
it does
I
suck.
love
It
Michigan
does
Michigan
suck.
State week, and we've
I do
been to one
too.
of the best ever,
We
you know,
did.
in 2021, and
It was fun.
it was just so awesome when both
Yeah,
teams are good, and
sure.
it just brings out everything, like the best of that rivalry. And then this is just, man, it
Yep.
sucks, you
Yes, it
know, it
sucks a
sucks
lot. The
because
last 2 years,
even if Michigan State finds a way to win it, it's like, all right.
who
Like
cares?
if you're
They'll be
Michigan State, like, yeah, cool, we stuck it to Michigan, we beat a
yeah.
rival, but still, we're still a freaking mess.
Yep.
Like it doesn't matter, you know.
Yep.
In the grand
Yep.
scheme of things, it's like not that, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. It'd be a nice little like light at the end of this terrible tunnel that they're in, but it's not going to be. It's not going to provide anything for the future.
No, and the other crazy part is, with this happens at every school where their coach is on the hot seat. Like, Michigan State is going to have a ton of recruits on campus, right? And they all those kids are wondering, like, hey, is this guy going to be around?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, it's rough.
Or hey, should we be on the other sideline? There's
I'm wondering if some of those receivers are thinking,
I
maybe I want to
Nick
go play with
Marsh.
that quarterback,
I
you
know,
know, or some of those Michigan coaches
I
maybe,
know.
and when they're doing
Why?
the handshakes, maybe making some conversations.
Why wouldn't you? If you're that
Absolutely.
kid, why
I'm a
wouldn't you?
Michigan fan.
Like,
I'd love to get those receivers over to
I know,
Michigan.
I
Yeah,
know. Nick Marsh is pretty good. Like, if
yeah.
you're
And
him, who do
Amari
I want?
Kelly's good
Like,
too. They got
Amari,
some good.
yeah,
They
they're
got some
not.
talent. They
Yeah,
do get a couple guys over there.
which is still so baffling that Michigan State, it's the UCLA game. Like, none of the other games, their losses bother me, but that's just not acceptable. And they are
They just didn't show up.
extremely beat up. They are extremely beat
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
But
But the
God,
defense has been a problem all year. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
atrocious.
yes. I
It's
just
terrible.
God, I don't think it's gonna be close. I've lived this rivalry long enough. And I hope I'm wrong, because for the sake of the rivalry in college football, like you said, it's fun when this is a good game. I don't think it's close. I think Michigan State fans are very similar to a lot of Tiger fans at the end of the season, where they're like, don't even make the playoffs, screw it, like, we don't care,
Oh,
just
jeez.
don't put us through. I think there are so many Michigan State fans that are
I bet
like,
you that I would
we're
be
done,
interested. Yeah. Do they
we're
kind of
done,
want them to lose this game? Because if he wins this
done.
game, it
Oh, no doubt.
might give him a leash. He might
He's
give
not
him
going
another year if
anywhere.
he can win it.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they get hammered and he's done. If they get
That's
hammered,
my
he's done Monday. And I think that's gonna
Yeah, I
happen.
think that's what the outcome is going to
Yeah.
be. I think Michigan's going to go out. I think Michigan's starting to get. I think they've gone through what they've needed to gone through as a team, and they've kind of come out the other side with that Washington win, because I think it could have collapsed. I think it
Hmm.
could have fell apart if they didn't win that Washington game or didn't
I
come out
agree.
very
Well,
well against Washington. But to come out and play the way they did, especially in the second half, I think they're ready. I just feel
yes.
it. Like they're
Do you
ready
know
to
what's
get on a little
weird?
bit of a roll here.
Well, I said if they lost to Washington, I heard this would have been the buyout bowl, right? I I think this game is completely different if Michigan loses to Washington.
Oh,
I think it's
absolutely,
completely
absolutely.
different on both
Because I think that
sides.
locker room falls apart
Yeah,
in Michigan. Yeah.
I think it's more even now, like you said. It's like Michigan has a couple wins against a couple decent teams on their resume, right? And Michigan
Yeah.
State doesn't. Like, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think
I
we're in agreement. I think it's going to be a Michigan dominant
yeah,
win, and
yeah,
Jonathan Smith's going to be fired for the next day. I think it's
I
where
agree.
we're headed. But
Yep.
again, like I've said, I've seen crazier things in this rivalry, so you never know.
Yeah, but
It's not looking good
it's
for Michigan State.
no, it's not. It's not.
So we can wrap it up there with the college football talk, and we're going pretty long here. But one more, like we said, there's just so much going on right now, man. So many
Hmm.
interesting topics to talk about, and we're going to finish up the show here. A lot of talk about Tarik Skubal and the
Hmm.
Detroit Tigers, and a report that came out recently from John Heyman. It talked about how they're $250 million apart. Now, this is a little bit misleading
Hmm.
because this kind of goes back to the Tigers' offer before the season
Yeah.
and what Boris and Skubal wants. So that was a different situation because he still had 2 years left on the contract. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if that number is kind of similar, because I don't think it's so much about the money per year. I think the Tigers would be willing to go a pretty high AAV,
Hmm.
which is money per year, but
Yep.
they just don't want long term. And I don't disagree with that fact. I mean, when
No.
we talked about Brian, like I think it could be a situation where they're still maybe 250 million apart, but maybe the Tigers offer 4 years, 200 million, where you're given
Yeah.
50 million a year, and
Yeah.
the Boris and Scuba want like 9 years, 50 million a year, which would be
Yeah.
450. There's your
Yep.
250 apart.
Yep.
I think it's more to deal with the years as it is to money. I was on the bashing Chris Illich train for a while. I was the conductor of that train for a long time, but
Mhm.
I'm kind of off of that. I know a lot of people say, God, he's a cheap owner and this, that. I don't
Mhm.
think this is a deal where it's cheap. I think
Mhm.
they're trying to be responsible,
Mhm.
and I think with Alex Bregman we talked about a ton. Like you just don't want to be paying these guys a ton of money when they're 36, 37, 38, and they're breaking down. We've seen
Because
it.
they
We
got
saw it with
burned.
Miguel Pereira. We've seen it. We went through
We
it.
saw it with Victor
I don't want to go through
Martinez.
that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Victor too.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And like I think if Mike Ilitch were the owner, I think whether Skubal gets re-signed or not, I think the Tigers are going for it next year, and there's no discussion of even trading them. Like I
Yeah,
think, like you said, I think they're all in. Like, hey man, we got this lotto ticket. Let's surround him with some dudes and let's go for it. Even with the potential um issues in 2027, like that we talked about before. But yeah, I think this is a different like ownership group. I think it's not our business, it's not our money, like you mentioned, and Chris Illich is not willing to do that. And you could also again make the argument that it's always risky when you give a pitcher that kind of money, the amount of money they get nowadays. And there are a lot of ways to win. And so obviously you're seeing it in with the other teams that are still alive. And it's going to be fascinating.
yeah,
It's looking more like, usually where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And the talk has all been he's getting traded this offseason.
yeah.
Where the talk isn't, no, the Tigers are going for one more ride with him, last dance kind of thing. The talk is they're moving him. And that's both crushing and exciting in a way as a Tiger fan. If
They got to
if
nail it though. They got
they
to get it right.
that's the thing. And I hope this is what I hope, and we've talked about this ad nauseum about how I think Scott Harris feels like his championship roster is still 2 years away, right? With all those young guys coming up. So it'll be interesting to see what the return is. Is it major league ready guys where they still feel they're competitive now, right? Which they are, or is it even younger guys, maybe higher rated prospects, knowing it's still a couple years down the road? I think if you go that route, it might make sense, but I think Tiger fans are not going to have it.
The majority of
Mm,
Tiger fans are not going to accept it. And
mhm,
we got a question from it's actually my sister Michelle who talked about how she's going to be really disappointed if Scooble gets traded, and she always looks forward to Scooble Day. When he's pitching every fifth day, it's a big, and he's like it was with Verlander.
mhm,
They always call must see JV. That's what Scooble became.
mhm.
And she said, I just don't know if Tiger baseball is going to be as exciting for me if Scooble's gone. And my answer to that would be like Tiger baseball got rough in the stretch, and even in the playoffs. We're watching every pitch because they're meaningful games. It was tough to watch because of that lineup.
Yeah.
And if these young guys come up and if they go out and get maybe an Alex Bregman or a Bo Bichette, or if they spend some money on some hitters, some veteran hitters to combine with some of the young prospects, hitting prospects
Yeah.
that they have coming, I think it will still be a very exciting game. Like it will still be
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
exciting
Yeah.
team. And I don't believe that trading Scooble is the end all be all. Like everybody talks about a Scooble window, right? And Harris said, I don't believe in a Scooble window. My point is like you could have a house with multiple windows. Like,
Mhm,
you know what
mm.
I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, the Scooble window is the big shiny window in the living room, but you got
Yeah.
some other windows in the house too. Like the other windows are these prospects that are coming
Yeah.
up. You have the number one farm system, and it's all hitting prospects that are those top guys: the McGonigal, the
Yep.
Max Clark, the Lorenzo's, the
Yep.
Brassinos, Max Anderson. I mean, it's just down the line. There's just so many hitting prospects that they have coming. I
Yep.
want to see the lineup be better, man. And
Yep.
if trading Scooble, provides an opportunity where like you get some guys that can combine with the hitting prospects that you got coming up, like I still think Tiger baseball is going to be exciting, and I still think Tiger baseball is going to be highly, highly competitive for years to come, even if they do trade Scooble.
Yeah, I mean, great question, Michelle, and her point is well taken. With school days being exciting days to watch him pitch. You know what else is exciting? Like looking at the lineup in Toronto and Seattle just go off. against each other. Like that's fun to watch. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty fun too. And so it's as long as like I think we both agree it's not going to be a fire sale. Like right, it's not like they have other
Absolutely not.
tradable parts. There's nothing like that. It's more of a retool and the realization of how just baseball is, with the economics of it. And um, so I think I'm leaning toward I think if they trade him, right, in which we both think they will, it will be like major league ready talent. Maybe you even if Jack Flaherty opts out, they do everything they can to resign him, even though he had an off year, right? You'd like him to resign.
I think he's going
Um,
to stay. But
I think he's
that
gonna
that
stay,
is an
but
interesting
that's
thing I wanted to bring up. Okay,
yeah,
do
it
you
is.
think Skubal, if Skubal gets traded after Flaherty opts in, you got kind of like a Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups situation. If you remember, where Rip Hamilton
Yeah,
signed long term, and then almost like a few days later, they traded his best friend,
they
Chauncey
did.
Billups. Like you
Yes,
could have a kind of a weird situation there because I think Flaherty and Skubal have become
you
pretty
could.
close friends.
Yeah,
And if Skubal gets traded, I don't think Flaherty opts in. I wouldn't
no,
think. Yeah, I
that's
could
a
be wrong,
yeah.
but I just wouldn't think he would.
You're right. No, that's a fair point, but he's got to think that and know that ahead of time too, I would think, right? Maybe having those conversations, you would think.
Yeah,
But yeah, I either way, like for the longest stretch of from 2014 until now, or whenever the last time the Tigers made the playoffs, like Tigers have been a bore. Like they've had no reason to watch or even be interested in the offseason. Now it's like, okay, this is awesome, right? And this is a fun time to be a Tiger fan. So regardless, like you said, I think they are going to be set up for years. They're going to have talent. They're going to acquire talent if they trade Skubal. And again, like you can't downplay the fact that in 2027 we might not be having you're not going to start the season. Like you just
yeah.
might not. And people, the jokes, like you saw Dave Roberts. I don't know if you saw Dave Roberts the other night after they clinched, and he's like, "Well, we're going to win four more and ruin baseball for everybody," because the talk is the Dodgers are the ones ruining baseball just because like they're the money and they're signing the guys. But and there's no, I don't. It'll be interesting. I think there's definitely going to be some changes. You'll have like they have a salary cap now, if you want to call it that, but I think an even bigger thing is a salary floor, right?
Yeah.
Where you make the teams.
Well, they have a luxury tax now. Is what they have.
Correct. Right, exactly. I know
Yeah.
salary cap, luxury tax, right? And so if you have the salary floor where you make teams, they got to pony up and have a, somewhat try to become competitive. But either way, it's going to be like you're staring down the barrel, unfortunately. And again, that's something else too with all this is
Yeah,
who
and
know
that's something
who's
I had thought
that.
about. When we were talking about a potential, I think we both think that schools can be traded, right? I think we're both
Yeah,
kind of on that boat
ag-
now.
agreed.
Unfortunately, you can look at it both ways. It's unfortunate. He's the best player on the
Yep.
team. He's the best
Yep.
pitcher in baseball, and
Yep.
they got to trade. I feel like they kind of are in a spot where they kind of have to trade him, unfortunately, and I
Yeah.
think that's the road
No
they're going
doubt.
to go on.
No
So we're
doubt.
both on that boat. So you look at that and you say, okay, well, who are some teams that would make sense? And I think the team that has come up the most, and we've talked about this, and now you're starting to see some, the top writers and the cover baseball say, yeah, the Mets, the New York
Yeah.
Mets make absolutely the most sense. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about this too, like you talked about, we could be looking at a lockout in 2027. Teams that are kind of in this all in mode right now, I think it puts more incentive on them now to go all in and push their chips
Hmm.
all the way into the middle of the table to try to win it next year because you have no idea what baseball is going to look like going forward. So
Agreed.
why not go out and get a guy that's on 1 year?
I
Right? That
that
seems like the best scenario because now you're not committed to him long term when you don't know what baseball is going to look like, what the salary situation is going to be.
Yep.
Go all in for it with 1 year when you have the team to do it. And what is the Mets missing? The one thing that they're really, really missing, an
Yeah.
ace pitcher.
So that's why it's funny, like when I've looked at watched videos or read up about this, like the fan forums and the comments from Mets fans, they're all like, no, just wait a year, right? We don't have to trade any of our guys, just wait a year, but like you could talk about their window is now. Like they had a lot of
Yes.
expectations this year and they collapsed and didn't make the playoffs. So like yeah, I'm with you. I think, and there's always hesitation. And fans talk about, well, no, you can't trade this prospect or this prospect's off tape. Like, I don't think teams like you just said are thinking that. I think if they think Tarik Skubal is the one thing that's going to put them over the top, then they absolutely are going to be willing to pony up guys, right? But I don't have all the teams top rated prospects in front of me, right? So it's going to be, I think there's going to be a couple things. I think it'll be a team, like the Mets, who have an idea that they think they can sign him long term. So teams that have the money and are willing to pony up. So like think of the big market teams: Yankees, Red Sox, Mets. Even the Dodgers.
Dodgers.
Right. So it'll have to be a team with that, that thinks that they can potentially convince him to sign long term, or and enough. I still think it has to be major league ready talent. I don't think the Tigers are going to take just a boatload of prospects. Like if it comes, like Tiger fans are going to be upset, even if it's some top 50 prospects in all of baseball. I still think fans are not going to want that. Like they're going to want major league ready guys.
Yeah. So, we talked about the Mets, and I just feel like it makes the most sense. They're the team that seems like the most logical team to trade with. And I got their top 5 prospects here. And Noah McLean he's off limits. I mean, he's a part of their rotation. I
See,
always find it frustrating
why?
when they consider their prospects. Like he's in their rotation. Like he's one of their main top pitchers. Like, so I don't think he'd be included. I think their kind of goal would be to match Skubal with him as their top 2 in the rotation. So I don't think he would be. I mean, the Tigers should ask, of course, but I don't think he's somebody that would be included because I think the Mets view him as part of their team, part of their major league team. I always get frustrated when they consider these guys still prospects when they've played majority of the year with the team. So let's kind of cross them off the list. The next guy would be Bench, who's an outfielder who is a major league ready prospect, center fielder. But he's a guy I think the Mets are kind of looking forward to be their center fielder next year. And he might be a guy that's maybe they'll if it gets to that point, maybe they would include him, but maybe you don't get, he's like the top guy in that deal. And you don't get a lot of other guys. Maybe it's a lot of lower end prospects if you get that guy. So let's take those top 2 out. And I look at the next 3. And if the Mets included these 3 guys, Jet Williams, Jonah Tong, and Brendan Sprout, you got 2 right-handed pitchers, starting pitchers who are pretty close. They're pretty close to coming up. They're top 100 prospects across baseball. And now if you're trading Skubal, the Tigers don't have a lot of young pitching prospects. You got Melton and you're going to get Job coming back in 2027. But in the minor leagues, like there just isn't a lot. There isn't a lot there. They have the best farm system, but it's all hitting. So I think if you're going to move Skubal, you want a couple pitching prospects to come along. And then if you can add a Jet Williams, who is, pretty close to being ready. He can play multiple positions: outfield, second base, shortstop. So this guy can do a little bit of everything. And if you can get these 3 guys in the package, and that'd be kind of a lot for the Mets to give up. But we talked about like they're in that situation where I think they need to go in for a lot of reasons. They missed the playoffs. It was a hugely disappointing season. They need to make a splash to kind of ease the fan base in New York there. And they have the money to go out and potentially, like you talked about, they could get in discussions with Skubal for a long-term extension if they want to go that route. But the number one thing is I think they need to go all in 2026. And I think this is kind of the trade that I would, you're seeing all these different trade proposals people putting out. This would be mine: Jet Williams, Jonah Tom, Brendan Sprout for Tarik Skubal. And I think as a Tiger fan, you're never going to be okay with Skubal getting traded. But if you're going to get 3 top 100 prospects, 2 of them are, pitching prospects that are pretty close to making the major leagues, and you combine that with all the hitting prospects that you come up, and we talked about it, we believe that Harris believes his core is a couple years away. It's these young guys that have been playing in West Michigan and Erie that are going to be coming up soon. You combine these 3 guys with that group. I don't think that's that bad. Like I could live with that as a Tigers fan.
With the assumption that they're not done. Now, is this with the assumption that they're going to try to sign?
You got to still go, regardless of what they do. They got to get some veteran hitters.
So you're not. So I will be extremely disappointed if that's the return and they don't sign somebody like Bregman. That'll be
get at least one.
That'll be extremely disappointing because I don't know about you, but it was pretty gut wrenching to see Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Anibal Sanchez, Rick Porcello. Let's go down the list of players JD Martinez, who've won a World Series, and they won it without the Tigers.
I mean,
or
I
they
think
didn't
all
want it
every
was
one of them.
yes, that's what I'm saying. Every one of those guys that loaded starting
All different
rotation is
teams, but they all
all
went to
different
win it.
teams, right? Like I can't like to see if you add Skubal to the list, just awful, right? Like that's just that'll be the worst for Tiger
Stuff.
fans. So it is
Stuff.
tough.
And we
I
mentioned this, I don't know, it might have been the last podcast, maybe one before that, but I talked about how this has to be their Stafford. Man, Scuba has to be their
mhm,
what Stafford was to the
yeah,
Lions when they made that
yes,
trade with the Rams. I mean,
yep.
I'm not expecting to get a Jared Goff like situation. Like
No.
that was just kind of they kind of lucked
Mm,
into that where Jared
yep.
Goff kind of blossomed here. But I'm
Mhm,
talking more about the draft picks that turn into,
yeah,
Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell and
yep,
Jameson Williams and all these guys. Like they were able to turn those prospects, essentially prospects, became huge parts of the current team that is one of the best teams in the NFL. Like this, I'm not
yeah.
saying that's one of the great trades of all time. That really worked out for both sides. You don't expect that, but they need something close to that. Like the guys that they get back in this trade have to be guys.
Mm.
They
It
have to be
can't
guys. It
it can't
cannot be a situation where the Verlander trade where
Jake
nobody turned out. The
Rogers.
best thing they got was Jake Rogers, who's a backup catcher now when they're good. Like it
Yep,
cannot be that. These guys have to be
yeah.
dudes. They
Have
have
to
to be
be.
dudes.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's a really risky time to be it's a risky time for Scott Harris. Like if this doesn't
Yeah,
work out, I don't think he's the GM very long anymore,
yeah. He's
or
putting
the
all
whatever,
his eggs in that
he's
basket of
for sure.
that his prospects that he drafted and that
Yeah.
he went for, and they play a way that he wants them to play.
Yeah.
He's putting all his eggs in
This
that
has to
basket. Now it
be,
gives that
yeah,
now that strategy gives him a little bit extra time, I think, because you're
sure it
banking on these
does.
prospects. You got to give them a little bit of time to develop, but he is
So what
banking
if
on these
it's
guys all being dudes.
So let me ask you this: what if it's similar to this? I'm looking at some of the bigger trades in baseball history. Granted, this was at the deadline, so it's a little bit different. Randy Johnson, when he first got traded to the Astros, um, the Mariners got Freddie Garcia, who ended up becoming a pretty good frontline starter. Carlos Guillen, who was a really good shortstop, had a couple big years with the
Not so
Tigers
much
even.
for Seattle, but with the
No,
Tigers.
right, but then with the Tigers, he was sweet. And then the player to be named later, who was John Halama, who had a decent career. Would Tigers fans be okay with that return if it
If you
played
get
out
it,
like that? Is that good
I
enough?
think, like I said, I think you brought it up. Like it has to coincide with them spending money elsewhere.
Yeah.
And we brought Jason asked this question, wanted us to talk a little bit about Alex Bregman, and we can finish this discussion with that a little
Yeah.
bit because obviously we've talked about this a ton, and it's been talked about a ton in Detroit sports for the last year. But Alex Bregman did opt out of
Mm-hmm.
his contract with the Boston Red Sox, so he is a free agent, and we're going to play this game again, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to be in talks with the Tigers throughout this whole offseason until he gets signed. But whether it actually is talks going on or not, the Tigers will be rumored with Alex Bregman this whole offseason until he's signed. It's just the way it is because it makes too much sense for both sides for him to be here.
Yeah.
The question is, are they going to be willing to play this game with Scott Boras again?
Yeah.
And I think I think they just got to come out right up front and like get this done early. Like give the best offer and be like, hey, this is what we're willing to do. This is what we're willing to offer. We're not playing this game again. We can't do
Mm-hmm.
it again. Like this is our offer. Take it or leave it. And they leave it. Boom, you go on to the next free agent. But we can't play this Alex Bregman game again all the way up to spring training like we did last year.
Right. Yeah, because it's setting them if they're able to get it done early, it's setting themselves up for the rest of the offseason. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And then that helps a lot instead of being in limbo, like you said, until February. So I agree with you. I wonder, like, it, is it a money? Is it like with Alex Bregman? Is it a money thing for him? Because like he was in a better hitter's park in Boston than he
Yeah.
was Detroit, right? Is it simply a money thing? I mean, maybe I don't know. It's not my money. I'm not making those decisions. Maybe it is for him, but so I'm curious what the angle is because it's not like Boston is bad. They were a playoff team as well. So I wonder
Yeah.
maybe he just wasn't a good fit in the locker room. You never know. Maybe he didn't like the East Coast,
Oh, I don't
right?
think that's it either.
You
I
think, I
really
mean,
don't
so I
know for sure.
wonder, is it like, oh, I'm regretting going to Comerica Park? Like, you know what I mean?
I think he wants
Like,
the long-term deal now.
could be.
You
Yeah,
know,
I could see that. Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know.
Could be. Could be.
It's Another one, I mean, again, another one that's going to be fascinating, and another name that's going to be up. I mean, the Tigers are going to be involved with all these guys, and we talked about it before, but man, this is fun.
This
Like,
is
yeah, it's
fun.
going to suck. Skubal gets traded, but still, man, to be able to talk about this stuff. I mean, the season's over, and we're immediately right into it. Like, we're
We are.
immediately into it, talking
Yeah.
Tigers, and the hot stove league's already begun, and the World
Mhm.
Series hasn't been played yet, and the
Yep.
Tigers are all over the news about what, rightly or wrongly or good or bad.
Right.
They're in the news about all these different trade rumors and all these different free agent talks, and it makes it fascinating. It makes it fun, man.
It
It's going to
is
make it
fun.
fun all year.
I agree. No, I agree. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Even it didn't happen at the trade deadline, but like the Tigers were the talk at the trade deadline in a lot of ways as
Yeah.
well, and then it didn't happen. But it makes it more fun to be a fan. I'm with you.
Yep. So we can wrap it up with that, Brian. Another good episode. Man, hour and 40 minutes, man. But again, there's so much to talk about, and that's what makes it fun around here. Detroit sports is just it's
We
an
didn't even
incredible
talk
time
about
right now to be Detroit sports fan. I
we
know
didn't
the
even
Red
talk
Wings
about that 5
straight.
and 1. Like, and it's not like a cheap 5
All
and
right,
1
one second
either.
before we'll wrap it. We got to talk about the Red Wings for a second because I think
Okay.
it ties in with the Tigers a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Red Wings, right, didn't really make any big free agent signings, right? No big
Yep.
trades. They got John Gibson as a goalie, pretty nice move, but yeah, really they kind of just worked around the edges, right? No big moves for the most part.
Yeah.
What did they rely on? The youth
Young
movement,
guys.
right? They start 3 rookies. Opening day roster. Opening night was rough, but since then they've won 5 straight against some really, really good teams, and they just look like a completely different team. Man, they just look faster. They look tougher. Man, they're winning battles on the boards, which they weren't before, and they're just a better team now, and they're doing it without big free agent moves, without big trades. It's the youth movement. It's depending on the guys that they drafted, and it's Yzerman, who's, again, much like Harris, did not want to move his prospects for 1-year rental guys. He was putting everything on the fact that, hey, we drafted well. We know what we're doing. These guys are going to come up, and it's going to change things. And so far, it's looking like he might be finally. It's taken a long time, but it's starting to finally come to fruition. And you wonder if maybe the Tigers are kind of on a similar path.
Quite possible. Again, Steve Yzerman was big on the Scott Harris hiring. Like he was, if you remember correctly, he was the Illich family was talking to Steve Yzerman about that, and he was involved in that process. So very similar lines of thinking right there. So it's exciting. Good start. Fun to watch so far. Yep. Long season, but right. Good so far.
Long way to go, but they're fun to watch. They're fun to watch right now.
Okay.
All right, so we'll wrap it up with that. So for Brian Barnes, I'm Dan Murphy. It's been another episode of Inside the Coach's Office, and we'll see you again down the road.